Hey guys. So I got something delivered yesterday that I am really anxious to put together and use. A rototiller. So a lot of you have been saying over the last 3 years that I've used my other rototiller that I should have a rear tine rototiller that would make life so much easier. So that's what I have. Now, full transparency, this video is not sponsored by Earthquake. However, they did send me this Earthquake Pioneer to try out. Earthquake is the brand of my last rototiller. It was a front tine one. And that was a beast. That was a workhorse. That did a lot around here in the absence of a tractor. So today I'm going to put that together and get to using it because I got to get this vineyard ready to plant. As you can see, I did some work out here yesterday. I have all the strings run to show me where the rows are going to be. There's 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're just under 5 feet apart, which is the row spacing. Now, a commercial vineyard, the rows are going to be much wider spaced because they have to get tractors and equipment down through those rows. But I'm just walking between the rows, so as long as I have enough room for that, that will be fine. I'm also widening this path that we're on right now. It's going to come all the way over where this hose is running. And that's in case, I'm sure someday I'll get some kind of a gator or something, not just to tootle around the property. Our property's not that big, but to bring compost and take yard waste to the compost bins, bring tools out, things like that. And so I want to make sure I have all of the paths, or at least one path accessing every area of the garden. I don't want to have to rig something to go up a stairway. So there is a big stairway over there. This path will be for the gator if it needs to get up into the other parts up here. Probably doesn't make any sense the way I'm saying it. So anyway, once I get the rototiller put together, I'm going to come out here and just kind of make small terraces, just the width of the rototiller, right in line with these lines. Now this string and these T-posts are not going to be the actual final trellis system. We're going to have 4x4 posts replacing these, and then wires going all the way to the other end where they will meet up with the other 4x4 posts. I'm trying to copy that part from a commercial vineyard, even though the spacing is going to be less. My 4 Thompson seedless grapes are coming out of dormancy here, still in their pots. So they need to get in the ground. The rest of the grapes are coming from an online company. They should be here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to get started putting this rototiller together, and then I'll meet you back in the vineyard to get started. So today, starting my tomato seeds. I waited a little longer this year because we went out of town for Emily's dad's funeral, and I didn't want to have to leave somebody in charge of caring for seedlings while I was gone. So I'm doing it now, and the weather's actually warmed up so much that I think I can actually do these outdoors instead of indoors, but I'll show you both ways on how to do it. Right now, I'm just pre-moistening the seed starting mix, and you can use seed starting mix or you can use indoor potting soil. Both of those are going to be sterile, so you're not going to be introducing fungus gnat eggs or different funguses into your seed starting mix. And you want to get it pre-moistened because once you've got it in the cups or whatever you're planting in, it's really hard to get it wet. It's not that easy in here, but it is easy. You just kind of got to massage the water into the seed starting mix because at the beginning it's kind of hydrophobic. And so you can't do this in a little cup. And you just want it to be about as wet as a wrung out sponge. So when you squeeze it, so see that's too wet, but there's still some more in here to absorb.
Ugh.
All right, that's good. We have the squeeze test, and just a few drips come out. That's totally fine. That's perfect. All right, so what I use to start them in, and I've done this for years, is just some red Solo cups, or any color, it doesn't matter. Now, are these the 8 ounces? I think these are 8 ounces. I don't know. The ones that are this big, the normal ones that you get. There are smaller ones, I know, and there's some huge ones, but this one, the main average Solo cup that we all get. These are from Costco. Now these last several years. In fact, I'm just now starting a new batch because mine from the last few years were getting brittle. So what you want to do is take some scissors or clippers, and you just want to cut some slits. They don't have to be perfect. Like that. So they're kind of going up the side of the cup, not just on the bottom. Then we're going to take a second cup that does not have holes in it, and we're going to put a marble or a little rock in the bottom, put this one on top of it. That's going to leave about a ½ inch down here of space for water to collect. Now you can use a clear cup for the outer one, that's fine, or you can use a clear cup for the inner one and see the roots developing. So once you've got those 2 cups stacked, we're going to fill it about halfway with our seed starting mix. So I'm going to go ahead and fill these all up, and then I'll come back. All right, so I got my seeds. I'm growing 4 different kinds of tomatoes this year, technically 5. Pink Princess, which is a cherry type tomato, very sweet, pink. Sun Gold, another cherry, but it's yellow, which I love. And then I'm growing a Super Sauce hybrid from Burpee. These produce really big fruits, very little seeds, very little juice, lots of meat. So that's for canning. And then my all-time favorite staple, Kellogg's Breakfast. Now we are doing the Tomato Challenge 2025. So if you don't know about that, I'll leave some information down below in the video description. I've already got my tomatoes started for that. This is a steakhouse variety from Burpee. I've already got some growth happening. We're doing that challenge with Chad over at Down Home Backyard Gardening and all of you who want to participate. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, label. And then I always put the date so I remember when I sowed them. So I'm going to take 2 seeds and sow them right in the top of this cup. Although, as you are noticing and probably questioning, why is the top halfway down? Well, that's because, put them in here, just press them down under a little bit of soil, not much at all. And that's because as tomatoes grow, they develop roots along their stem wherever they touch the soil. Now, a lot of people know that. They know to plant the tomato deep in the ground. But did you know you can get a start on that right here in its seedling cup? So what this does is this leaves room for these seedlings to grow. And as they grow, I can just gently fill in with some more seed starting mix around them as they grow all the way up to the top. That way, by the time you've got them in the ground, they've already got more roots than they would have had in just a standard small seed starting container. Now this only works with tomatoes. Don't go doing this to your squash or anything like that. You will probably ruin them. They will rot. It also works a little bit with peppers and eggplants, but not to the extent that it does with tomatoes, so I don't bother with those. Now, like I mentioned before, our weather's warming up here. In fact, we never really had a lot of cold winter weather this year. But we are in the 70s in the day, sometimes 60s, and then at night we're in the 50s. And so these can germinate out here. It might take a little bit longer. So I may put them inside on a heat mat just until they germinate. And then once they germinate, then I'll bring them right outdoors as soon as I see that first germination. You don't have to harden them off that way or anything like that. If you want more detail on this process, I'll put a link down below to my video over on Next Level Gardening. It's actually a very popular video, but there'll be more detail on this process. Okay, it's been a couple of days since I was working on the rototiller. I had to stop because I was putting it together and I couldn't find the wheels. So I contacted Earthquake, the manufacturer, and they said the wheels were in a separate box, and apparently they were coming the next day for whatever reason. So I've got them now in this box right here, and I'm going to start working on that again. However, a few minutes ago I heard Emily say, "Oh, you let them out." And I came out and found not only Ollie and Otis grazing, but Daisy as well. Now, the problem is, well, first of all, the grass is not grown in enough. But secondly, it's still not completely dried out from the rain. And so you can see where she walks, she's leaving hoof prints. But I tried to rope her, and apparently I don't have that cowboy skill. And so they're out here until I feed them hay tonight, or till they wander back in themselves. Somehow, I guess I left the gate, it just wasn't quite latched, and they got out. What are you gonna do? It's 85 degrees out here in February. But anyway, 1 row down, 4 to go. So my initial opinion on the rear tine tiller, it seems to be a lot smoother. I'm not like wrestling it. It just kind of goes slow and steady. I'm loving the reverse function. You just pull up on the handle and it reverses the tines and the wheels. It's self-propelled forward and reverse. That's very helpful. The first pass was like somebody warned me about the rear tine, that it kind of slides down the hill, and it did that a little bit, not like the trencher did in the pasture. But I did have to wrestle a little bit on the first pass, but then I raked it and it was flat and it went nice and smooth. I didn't have to, pull it one way or another too much. It just went right down the row. So if you've got a flat property, no problem. If you've got a hill property, might do a little wrestling on the first pass, but not much. So again, I am not terracing per se. I'm just leveling out a row, basically cutting into the top, pulling it out. This also, the hill slopes down this way, but it also slopes this way. So I brought a lot of the dirt from up here and raked it down to that end, just kind of leveling it a little bit. Now we're not going to be flooding these rows to water the grapes anyway. We're going to be using drip irrigation. So other than heavy rains, it's going to be watered evenly. All right, I'm going to go the next row. Well, it's a few days later, and the difference in the weather is remarkable. I think the last time I was on here it was 85 degrees, and now we're down into the low 60s again, where I like it this time of year. And we've also got a couple days of heavy rain coming. So that's all good. And I'm not sure if I even showed you kind of the finished product over here in the vineyard. So we've got our lower terrace right here, second terrace, third terrace, fourth, terrace, and then the 5th terrace I haven't done yet. It's at the very top. These T-posts are just here to hold the line for me to make the terraces, but they're going to be replaced by 4x4 posts. The warm weather coupled with the rain a couple weeks ago, we've got the acacia trees blooming. Chives are starting to bloom. All of the area that we don't irrigate and on the neighbor's property is greening up. Fruit trees are blooming, putting out leaves. And up in the cottage garden, we've got the most signs of spring. One of our western redbuds is really coming out. The cherry tree is blooming and putting on lots of leaves. This is a clematis that has been pretty much, I planted it, I got it at Costco like 2 years ago probably, stuck it here. It's never done anything. It had like 4 leaves on it the last couple years, and now all of a sudden, it's starting to grow. It's even got a flower bud there. Yarrow's coming up, Nepida's coming up. Got some muscari scattered here and there. I planted that a couple years ago. And all of the roses that I cut back are pushing new growth. And you can see that pruning does that to them at this time of year. All the ones I pruned are pushing new growth. This is the one that I didn't prune, and we have pretty much 0 new growth on it. I didn't prune it because I'm going to be doing a video for Next Level Gardening, basically taking you through an entire year of rose care. And so I left this one to do that video. So I'm going to actually do that on this channel right now. So if you're wondering what to do with your roses at this time of year, which would be late winter, early spring, depending on where you are, we'll just get this done together. All right, 65 was even feeling a little warm, so I had to change shirts. So the only things I need for this project are my trusty Felco pruners, which you take care of them, they're going to last you a lifetime. They are more expensive than something you'd get at Target or Walmart or something. I used to use all those, and I probably had to replace them every couple of years. Whereas these, like I said, will last you a lifetime, and you don't even have to replace them when they're bad. You can clean them. Each piece can be individually purchased, so you can keep them going, and you don't have to just buy new ones when they're not working so well. Okay, that sun feels warmer than 65. It's also nice to have some kind of bucket or something to put the trimmings in. I still don't practice what I preach with that. A lot of times I'll just prune and let them all fall on the ground, then pick them up and put them in the barrel. But that's just an extra step. So when I remember, having something handy like this just saves some time. So the first thing we're looking for to prune here are any dead or diseased or broken branches. Looking through here, I don't see a lot of those actually. So the next thing I look for is any branches, well, 2 at the same time, because some might be inside and you need to get in there. But branches that are thinner than a pencil, or branches that are crossing and rubbing on each other. And you can see down here in the center, we've got lots of those. And it's actually good also to open the center up for some more airflow, especially if you live in a humid climate. Okay, this little bit of blood right here just reminded me of another nice thing to have, not mandatory, but it sure makes the job more pleasant, and that is some good rose pruning gloves. These are the best ones I have found. If they're still on Amazon, I'll link them below. I've never been poked through the leather, and it covers up your forearms as well. Still continuing to take out tiny branches and crossing branches. So now standing back and looking at the structure, what I want to do is remove any branches that are growing into the center of the plant versus out away from the center of the plant. If I see 2 branches that are close together and might rub on each other, I'm going to take out the one that's either the weakest or that's growing into the center of the plant. So that's a judgment call. Unfortunately, this is a pretty well pruned rose from the summer pruning I did. So it's probably not the best example of all of these things, but this right here is growing toward the center of the rose. So that's one that I would prune out. When we come up here a little bit taller, you can see these two branches here are growing outward. This one's growing inward. So I'm going to remove that one. This rest of this branch kind of comes up here and does nothing. It ends in these kind of dead forking branches. They're not dead, but they don't look like they're going to be super productive right now. So I'm going to follow that down, and I'm going to take it off right before. Actually, I think what I'm going to do, because this is a nice healthy branch right here, and these are going to start to interfere and cross. So I think even though that's a thick branch, it is right in the center of the plant also. So I'm going to go ahead and just take that off here at the base. Okay, sometimes when the Felcos don't do on larger, older, harder branches, you got to bring out the bigger guns. Now you can see this one here, these two are rubbing right there. And so as nice as this new cane is, it's got to go. Now when you're making your cuts, especially up here higher in the plant, you want to cut just above a leaf node. A leaf node is, if there's already leaves on the branches, a leaf node is going to be where the leaf meets the stem. And you can see, when you look in there, you can see that little pinkish red dot. That's what's going to grow the new branch. So you want to cut right above a leaf node at an angle, about 45-degree angle, just above the leaf node, and you want to choose an outward facing leaf node. So this one here, you can see if it's going to grow this way, which is away from the center of the plant. This one here is going to grow toward the center of the plant. So we're just going to, at an angle above that leaf node there, cut it. Now, I left that too tall, but it was in a good spot to show for the camera. Generally, when I'm pruning a rose in the winter, I want to take it down to about 3 feet tall. All right, so I'm just going to continue through the process with everything I just taught you. All right, the next thing we want to do, and this is optional, but I find that it's helpful and it just looks more tidy, is I just go through and I take off any of the leaves that are left on the plant. That plus what I'm doing right now, which is cleaning off the leaves on the ground that have fallen, either just now or before. It just reduces the disease risk for the plants. Now, I don't spray my roses with a dormant spray in the winter. We don't have a lot of humidity here. We don't have a lot of disease here. And all of these roses so far are newer David Austin roses, which are bred for more disease resistance. If you have that problem, you can spray with a dormant oil, horticultural oil, after you get done pruning. Now we can really see the bones and the shape of the plant here, and it might look a little different than a rose you've seen before, with this branch coming down this way, and that branch coming over that way, and this branch coming this way. I showed on a video last year, which was probably a year too soon for these roses. They're only a couple of years old. But when you have a rose that puts up long, whippy growth, you can actually take that growth, and rather than cutting it off, you can pull it down with a twine or something and use a landscape staple or something to pull it down and anchor it to the ground. And you're going to get these arching stems. Now, typically when a rose is left to grow normally, you're going to get leaves that come out on the stems, and then somewhere toward the top it'll start to branch. When you tie a branch and make it arch like this, the sun hitting that branch, rather than the hormones going into the tip and growing more, it puts the hormones back here at the leaf nodes and it triggers them to grow more branches. In turn, you're going to get, now when these start to put out leaves and more smaller branches and blooms, you're going to get much more bloom on this branch, whereas doing it the other way, they would just kind of be on the tip here. So there's a couple of roses I'm training that way. I'm going to continue to train them that way. As they get bigger, the arches will get bigger, and we're going to have a lot more blooms on those roses. But again, that only works well when it's a rose that puts up long, whippy branches. All right, I can check that job off my list. Now all the roses in the cottage garden are pruned. And I actually did what I was going to do and got all of the branches and leaves in this. And now I just have to go and put it into the compost. So now I got to tell you a funny story. I was out here the other day, and I think Pugsley, our rooster, is jealous of me. And I say that because I walked up here the other day, and all the hens were around him. And because they thought I was bringing something to eat, they all ran to me and left him over in the corner by himself. And he looked a little perplexed, and then he ran and got between them and me, and he put his wings down and did this little, like, look at me dance, which was pretty cute, I have to say. And then I may have made it worse by crowing myself. And as soon as I did that, he hopped up here on this stump to get as tall as I am and let out a loud crow. There he is. So I guess we're a little bit competing for the hen's attention. He doesn't like that. Look at that tail. Look at that iridescence. Hey, Phyllis. So I do have to say, though, he is a very good rooster. He is not violent at all towards me, unlike our last rooster. He is not overly aggressive with them. I have seen him hopping on them, which is part of his job, right? But I've seen where hens can get their feathers pulled out, they can get scratched, and it's just not a pretty sight when you have an overly aggressive rooster. And so far, he is not that way at all. Now, part of the thing could be he is actually smaller than most of the hens here, but he's a good rooster. And I've also gotten the question, is he going to fertilize the eggs and make chicks? The answer is yes. That's just his natural instinct to do that. And they're not going to become chicks because we collect the eggs every day. So yes, some of those eggs might be fertilized, but if they're not incubated, there's really no difference. I think the one difference that I actually haven't even been able to see is on the yolk, there will be a very tiny, like, white dot with like a bullseye around it. I haven't seen that, but it doesn't change the egg in any way as long as you gather them and a chicken doesn't start sitting on them. And even if they started sitting on them, it takes several days to even move past to the next stage. So he's here because he helped protect them. He will send out an alarm if an animal comes near or there's a hawk overhead. As long as he's nice, he can stay. It's a couple days later, and the last couple of days have been full of rain. We got big puddles and ponds everywhere. And our actual pond site, or future pond site, is still doing its job, keeping the water from eroding down the pasture. Headed down to see everybody in the corral, see what's going on down here. And we got puddles. Yeah, how come you're the dirtiest of all, Bella? Everybody else looks pretty good because they know to stay dry. Don't let the way she looks fool you. She's got plenty of places to go to get dry. She stands right out in the middle of the pasture, looks up at the sky as the rain is coming down, and goes and rolls around in the mud. Look at this disgraceful mess. It's always the stripe on your forehead, too. What is that? Huh? What is that? She actually looks better than she did last night. Now, if she stops rolling around, this fur will be clean by the end of today. Back to white again. Or off-white. She's been digging like crazy. Look at this. This one's so deep I had to put a little trash can in there because she was literally digging over into the corral. What's up with that? What's up with that? Oh, you're going to get yucky. Let's go show them what else you did. In a cave, apparently. Although I will give her credit for not doing anything in the middle of the grass. Look how good that looks. So I conferred with Daisy's breeder. I sent some pictures to just make sure she's pregnant, because she just doesn't look fat to me. Like, she's supposed to be giving birth in 2 months. But the breeder said she looked pregnant to her, and all the signs were pointing to that. So yeah, I think she's due just about the beginning of May. So literally exactly about 2 months from now. So in addition to her regular hay ration, Daisy's also getting a daily allotment of loose minerals. Now, if you have sheep with your cow, sheeps are not allowed copper. And so you either want to keep the minerals away from the sheep and just have it available to the cow, or get one like this that does not include the copper. So we have one that doesn't include copper, but we also put it in there where the sheep can't get it. So with 2 months left until her due date, it is high time we start building the milking stanchion. And so in the next couple of weeks, that's a project that's going to have to get done, along with everything else I have to get done. But I'm going to have the time to be able to train her to go in there, and it shouldn't be too difficult. She's pretty good, especially if I put the food in there. She's very food motivated, like most animals. You're a mess, girl. You're a mess. You're a mess. Well, that's it for this video, you guys. I'll see you next time.